All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right, it is go time, and it is on. It is on, as you see from the little notepad. Does everyone see my screen? Just let me know if you can see my screen, and give me the number one. Yep, bring it on. Yes, number one. All right, great. How many people are excited with what they see on their screen? How many people are fired up by what they see? Oh, this is good to know. This is good to know. That's right. OMG Live Nashville 2014 is on. I'm going to begin with the Lord's Prayer, and we're going to go from there. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen. Okay, this is big. This is big. We have a big Webby today. We have essentially two major events going on. The first is what you're seeing on your screen. It's on OMG Live. We are opening ticket sales as of right now, and I just uploaded this page. Tinkered on it the last couple of days. I've been working behind the scenes with Russell Wright and Sue Bell and Jimmy Kelly especially. And of course, Greg Morrison. Russell and Sue, are you guys there?
Hello,
We
Mike.
are.
All right. What do y'all? What are your feelings as you look at this beautiful image of all these people raising their hands and it's on the link page and everything like that? Let me take everybody over to this page to show. I really like this letter because it just is what's going on. It's what we accomplished back at OMG Live was very, very exciting. Pulling this up right now. Get a reaction from Russell and Sue. This is something real source of pride for us. So here's the page. When you open it up, this is what it looks like, and what you see is it'll take a few seconds here to load it up because I think we have a lot of people hitting this letter right now. But we got a standing ovation for Greg Morrison. We got a standing ovation here for Jimmy Kelly and Russell and Sue. We got a standing ovation for you. What was this event like?
Brings back memories of a room full of light bulb moments
Yeah,
and excitement.
I guess you could say that again. What about you, Sue?
It was a lot of fun. I haven't had that much fun in a very long time.
Let's play this. Let's see what a standing ovation. I asked, is that everything that we build it to be? That's a sold out audience at OMG Live Nashville 2013. It's about like 7 months ago, and yeah, people coming out of their seats. This is really great. This is right after Russell and Sue dropped the bomb. Some software that they put out. There they are, looking great. OMG Live Nashville is a very special moment. All of our speakers got standing ovations, and with good reason why. The reason I pulled up this photo right here, this was a very special moment. This is at the very beginning of the event, and I had this thought. It was just a few days before the event. I imagined this moment in my mind. OMG is a city on a hill, a place where friends come together in Providence. And I imagined standing in front of everybody. I was so curious. I was taking a walk with David Mills. We live just a few blocks away from where the event is going to be held at the Drury Plaza in Franklin. And I took a short walk with David, and I said, I wonder what would happen if I asked people to raise their hands if they paid for their trip to OMG Live Nashville out of profits, profits that they've learned from various SEO moves from Greg, or maybe some tips they picked up from Jimmy and Russell and Sue, just our whole City on Hill community. If you learn something from Joe Marfolio or from Fletch, what would raise your hand? And it didn't all happen simultaneously, but about I'd say somewhere between 7 and 8 out of 10 people raised their hands. That was incredibly gratifying to us. But the reason why I love this picture so much is something like a little bit hidden. This is Scott Schaff right here, and you can see his head is turned to the side. And I've asked Scott what he was thinking about then, and what he was thinking, he told me. Hopefully, I'm getting this pretty well right. He said what he's thinking is that he's going to join those people as well. Like he'll be somebody he'll be able to raise his hand, and within, I'd say, ballpark 90 days from that time, Scott was already making ballpark $20,000 per month. And Russell and Sue, I don't know if you knew this, but at the time of OMG Live, Scott was actually on leave from Afghanistan, where he was living in a bunker that comes under daily rocket attacks. And it was just in his spare time that he was able to fuse what we put together from various OMG stuff, but especially from OMG Live, from your guys' teachings, from Jimmy's teachings, from Greg's teachings, and he just really exploded his business. And now he's just gone on and on from there. And that's several people who went to OMG Live have reported back to me the same thing. How does that make you guys feel?
I did not know that. That's very cool. It's good to know the stories behind the stories.
Yep.
Yeah, Scott has been really outspoken. Scott was actually on our last acceleration webinar just a week ago. So anyways, this is going to be a very, very cool event. I'm really looking forward to having you check this out. What I want to do is I want to give a sneak preview to one of the things that we're going to cover at OMG Live 2014. Kurt Engett. Kurt, are you there?
I'm here.
Kurt, you were in the audience at OMG Live Nashville last year.
Yeah. I'm in the row behind Scott.
You're right behind. Oh, where are you? Where do I find you here? Are you out of the picture here?
Two to the left. I'm like resting my head on my chin.
Oh, you're resting your head on your chin, but now you're in there. So you're also one of the people, because you've really. Let me pull up a letter that you shared with me, and this has really got me fired up. It's so funny. Somebody, by the way, Jason Patterson is officially the first person to get his ticket, his golden ticket for OMG Live Nashville. These things are.
Nice.
I haven't even told you what's going on, and you're already ordering tickets. Unbelievable.
I didn't even know there was a buy button yet.
There is. Congratulations, Jason. Lee Vaughn was the first person to buy last year. So I remember that. It was just kind of funny. It just sort of flashed into my email inbox. Let me pull up this letter, Kurt, that you sent me. This really fired me up. And I shared this with OMGers because one of the things that we're going to be talking about is recovery. And recovery is a really, especially as SEO becomes more and more a popular topic with business owners and with affiliates and with all sorts of people out there, then recovery becomes more and more important, because you have more people who have tried, and it's sort of like losing your girlfriend or losing your boyfriend. That feeling, that feeling, oh gosh, I wish I could get him back, that ex back kind of feeling. And I'm not making fun of it at all. It can be very emotional, and with good reason. You can have a site that used to be making a ton of money, and then it gets slapped down by Google. Well, anyways, this is the email dispatch I just sent out a few minutes ago. I'll get to this in a second, the $70,000 commission, which I said I would touch upon in this event. But Kurt, this is a letter from you here, and I'll read it out loud, and maybe you can give us a little context behind this, because in the time since OMG Live Nashville, you've worked with Jimmy Kelly and had extraordinary success, especially with recovery. So it says from you, Kurt, hey, Mike, I asked, this was Kurt in response to me asking if he would come live on this event today. And he said, I'll do it if you'll give me the early skinny on Nashville date so I can call Drury and book a good room before they're all gone. And he gives me a
Which I've done.
Which he has done. So he says, but honestly, I'm honored to be a webinar guest. I've worked on about 14 or so recoveries. It's amazing. Some go better than others. Some have been a screaming success. Some, let's just say, I'm still working on them, still learning. I'll be happy to share what I know. I'm always doing penalty recovery these days. By Wednesday, I should be holding a $2,500 check for a new one I just picked up last week. If it comes by the mail, then maybe I'll do some check flashing.
And I'm holding the check.
Are you holding the check right now?
I'm holding the check right now.
How does that feel? That sweet, tasty morsel of success?
It'll pay some bills, that's for sure.
Love it. Love it. Kurt says, I think penalty recovery is one of the most important skills an SEO can have, as you're probably going to need it for the sites you work on, especially clients who got the neighborhood kid next door to do all their SEO. Also, doing penalty recovery gives you a much better understanding of the algorithm, which leads you to better SEO. Russell, were you going to say something?
I just said what? What's wrong with the neighborhood kid next door?
More money for us, I guess.
It's cool if you're living next to Jimmy Kelly, I guess.
Oh yeah, exactly.
You're all welcome to live next to me.
Jimmy Kelly. Sorry. Just Jimmy. We're gonna have a Jimmy Kelly sing off at OMG Live Nashville. My money's on me, but we'll see who pulls it off. We've had children's videos and so forth. Maybe if you go for that cuteness stuff, maybe the children will win. Okay, and thanks for the kudos, but all praises to Jimmy. This is still from Kurt. The majority of what I use comes from him. By the way, I'm gradually climbing toward that 20K mark. I think I did around $17,000 last month. Vastly more than the average doctor makes, by the way. My plan is doing at least 50K by Nashville. Let me know what you need from me on Wednesday other than a microphone and a headset. And this is a very dramatic, this is what recovery looks like. I mean, this is, Kurt, you sent me this screen capture, and you're looking at skyrocketing rankings like literally overnight from number 88 to number 20, and then now cranking it up from there. What's it like to be able to have that in your toolbox, and how are you leveraging that? Because obviously $17,000 a month is a tremendous amount of money, but a decent amount of your earnings comes because you have that tool in your tool set.
Yeah, well, both of those questions are good. I especially like the fact that you're asking how do you leverage that, because when you can show this to a client, and especially I'm usually doing a recovery for somebody who's just getting started with me because their site's been messed up and they're not ranking. And when you can show something like this to them in a couple weeks or so, you've got instant credibility. You've got authority. From there on, it's pretty easy cruising, because you just showed them what you're talking about. You've kind of got over that period of they're wondering and doubting and worrying. Is it going to be as bad as the last guy?
Yeah. You're really overcoming that disbelief, and that's a really powerful thing. So do you think for your money, do you think that just because I think that there's a number of things that we're going to be, and really the big letter that you're going to see, or the big word that you're going to see in this letter that I put up for everybody here, is secret. There really are secrets, and you learned secrets at OMG Live Nashville last year, things that are just people still just don't know.
Oh,
and
yeah.
What's that like for you, Kurt?
It gives you the swagger and the confidence. I mean, when you have the ability to tell a person with confidence, this is what I can do if you hire me. It's a lot easier to sell. I mean, if you have the certainty, then the person, if you're doing this with local clients, the person you're talking to is going to pick up on that certainty. Back before, I mean, all through my learning and growing in SEO, it's been a gradual course of getting more and more certainty. But Nashville last year was just like a huge shot in the arm. I mean, it was like steroids for an SEO. So since that time, I've been able to take on projects I would have never taken on before.
Yeah, and this is guidance. This is Jimmy Kelly getting a standing ovation. Were you one of the people up on your feet and applauding for Jimmy?
No, I sat.
Nice.
So, of course,
I was standing on the table. Come on.
That's
I'm just
awesome.
short. You can't tell.
That hurts, Kurt. That really hurts.
so
Jimmy brought the goods, man. Jimmy's brought the goods since then. I didn't really know much about Jimmy prior to that.
Yeah.
I probably talked to him and stalked him a little bit on Facebook. But Jimmy was actually one of the reasons I showed up in Nashville when I started hearing about his successes.
Mm-hmm.
So, and now there's many more good reasons to show up this year.
Yeah. I think that this is going to be a really exciting event. One of the things that people talk about with OMG Live is essentially, the culture with OMG, and this is something that we're going to be on with David Mills shortly. David Mills is the one who designed the culture of OMG, and he's the one who's really envisioned and designed OMG, and including designing in Russell and Sue's involvement in it before we even opened our doors, and leaving room for young stars to emerge, as Jimmy Kelly has done, and as a number of individuals who are also involved in the event have done. See people like, well, this is pretty cool that this year Becker added a Ferrari. This is Becker speaking at OMG Live, definitely a rising star. TJ Schmidt with his Tim Schmidt with his Ferrari here. So 6 months before Tim was speaking of OMG Live Nashville. Is it a coincidence, or is it the golden ticket? I don't know. Maybe it's just coincidence, but I I think that really having that design is really there. I think that people really feel correctly feel included and a part of something very, very special when it comes to OMG, and that's never so true as with OMG Live Nashville. So we're really excited about this. Fair warning, I put a quick note at the top of things as I was roughing out some math and thinking it through. I wrote Mike Long's note. In my opinion, there's a better than average chance this event will sell out pretty fast because of the success of last year's first OMG Live Nashville non-recorded, non-disclosure event, and because of the lineup of mouth-watering underground search engine annihilation secrets that are on parade. And so I don't know how else to put it. I do think that we're going to sell out, of course. I think there's no question we're going to sell out. The question is, how long is it going to take? Jimmy, you there, Jimmy?
Yeah, what's up, Mike? I am here.
You know, I was so fired up about OMG Live Nashville, but you and I got on the phone and we started talking about. We got on Skype actually a few days ago, and we started roughing out some of the things that you're going to cover. And I've written a little bit of that into the letter. Obviously, we just talked about recovery with what Kurt's doing, $17,000 a month. It's incredible. But we got into some of the things that you're going to be sharing. Some of the new domain authority stuff that you have going on. The $100,000 in 30 days Amazon Plus case study, some other Amazon Plus stuff that we're working on, Amazon Plus Google. And, it's kind of funny how many people in the audience right now, and I'm curious, I'm going to jump over to Facebook here. If I go over to Facebook, and I've got pinned to the top of the OMG Live group here, I've got a little thread about today's event. How many people here, and I'd like to see kind of publicly, how many people wish that OMG Live Nashville was going to be tomorrow, just based on the limited amount that you've got? Give me like a hashtag tomorrow if you wish that OMG Live Nashville was going to be tomorrow or figuratively tomorrow, like in the next couple of days or so forth. I'm just kind of curious to just kind of gauge the sentiment. Becker and I talked a little bit earlier. Becker will be on hand if people are wondering about that. Cotton Grammar says yes. Ted Holcomb, Daniel Tomic, Stephen Taggart says hashtag now. Dave Keys in the morning, in the AM, Dave O'Rourke, Paul D, Ross Lincoln, Lauren. Hey, Lauren, how's it going? Lauren gives us a hashtag tomorrow. Jim, oh man, Jim Messenger, yep, cheer. Marilyn Reed gave us a hashtag tomorrow. Rebecca, hashtag bring it on. Don Eason, Kurt Engen tonight. Kurt,
let's get started.
Let's go. Dave Eaton, Eric Transow. Mal Cooper gives us a hashtag. David Ewart. Okay, so this is a fairly exciting segment. Let me express something here. When you hear more about what Jimmy's going to be showing and what Russell and Sue are going to be spilling the beans on, the futuristic software that's going to be available, Greg's involvement, and also including what Becker's going to say and what I understand Tim Schmidt's going to be there. It sounds like Jim Ussinger is going to be there. Cotton. You hear about who's going to be there, what's going to be said, but let's just focus on Jimmy for a second. When you hear what Jimmy's going to be bringing to the table, I don't blame you. I wish it was tomorrow too. But I'll tell you this. I want you to remember that feeling. I really want you to remember that feeling right now, because come November, it's going to be as true or even more true. Jimmy, one of the things I found about your style of SEO is just so often, and I know that there's a lot of people in the audience and even that are live with us right now, Kurt and Russell and Sue. There's so many people that feel like what you know about SEO and what you're sharing about SEO is what they need right now. And you have a way of really staying on top of things and really staying just right on that bleeding edge of things. And in my opinion, when it comes time for OMG Live Nashville in November, I got to tell you a couple things. Number one is most certainly it's going to be sold out, so you won't be able to make a decision there to come in and join us. But it's going to be just as cutting edge then, and it may even be, Jimmy, that you have learned a new thing or two that's pretty urgent or pretty important. Right now we're just dealing with the aftermath of Panda 4, and you and Greg and Russell and Sue have been working on that. I, domain authority, for example, just becomes more and more and more important. And because of all these changes in Google, because of Penguin and Panda, average store owners and shop owners know what Penguin and Panda are. They want the power of recovery. They want, I know OMGers. I mean, how many people like the idea? And I'm just going to put a number one because I certainly like this. Give me the number one in this Facebook thread if you like the idea of Jimmy showing you how to use free social sites to just absolutely supercharge your PBNs. How about that? Greg uses Jimmy for this. We don't have like a really specific, wonderful name for it that's very marketable. But and Heidi loves the recovery. Yeah. Liz is up. That's great. This is a really exciting event, by the way. We have a lot of people live for this.
Dang, that's a lot of ones.
Yeah, because that's one of the things that Jimmy's going to be talking about. This is something we call it. Our little code name for it is Death Knight. But Jimmy, you can take with a few 100% free social links and put together the right way in the right order. You can really ramp up the power. And this is something that you and Greg have worked together on behind the scenes at this point for months and months now. What are some of the things that, what's your vision? You and I talked about maybe being in Scott Schaff's shoes and sitting there, in the audience for OMG Live Nashville 2014 in a few months here in November. And just you sitting there and knowing that, last year you took your earnings from $0 to $20,000 per month. And now you're sitting in the audience and you're staring up at the stage. You're staring at you, Jimmy the Kelly, taking the stage. What do you have in store for all these people we have that are wish it was tomorrow for Kurt and for Cotton and for Jim and Rebecca and for Lauren? What do you have in store for Lauren for OMG Live Nashville? As people are sitting in the audience looking up you as you're taking the stage, you're a pretty tall guy. All eyes on you. What are the because OMG Live Nashville last year was the very first time you ever spoke or presented. You've only since then just presented at CERT, which is Russell and Sue's extraordinary $15,000 per person event. What do you have in store for everybody for OMG Live Nashville 2014?
Well, there's always going to be a few tricks that I haven't disclosed from, the time before. Some of those things that I had shared last year I'd been using for many years prior to. So, I still have a bunch of those tricks in my bag. We'll be sharing some of those. We're definitely going to cover some of the topics that I didn't get to go over last year, but this time around I'm going to pick less topics so we can actually, this time around I want to actually walk people through the process. I feel like I had so much to cover in one day last time. I just got cut short on, I think some of the portions of it. So I think there's more questions in that sense, but I really want people to walk away with, basically a game plan to be able to go out and have success for the coming SEO. And, I'm always learning new stuff, and, you can never not keep learning SEO. It's just always changing. Google's always doing updates. There's always different tactics you can use. And it all just comes down to your testing and how you implement them. But, and I'm so happy for Kurt and all the success he's had. He's been a really gifted student of mine that, he's had great success with this recovery of these sites he's been working with. And, probably more so than anyone else that I've taught. He's definitely gifted.
It's a good teacher. Good teacher.
And I want people to have the same success that Kurt's having now, that so many other people have had already. Why not have a good year? Come into 2015 and start rolling up your sleeves and making some money. I mean, everybody can do this. Everybody can make money. There's no, you just have to know the blueprint, basically. So. But yeah, we'll share a bunch of cool stuff. I wanted to actually ask, we have that slot that's kind of one more topic. I'm kind of curious to think what people.
Oh, you want to know? Yeah, this is something, I don't know how good of an idea this is, but I'll put it out there for you on Facebook. If you have a topic that you'd like Jimmy to cover, this is not exactly a democracy, as David Mills likes to point out. This is a benevolent dictatorship with David ultimately in charge. But if you have a topic you'd like Jimmy to cover, some things that we know he's going to cover, we know he's going to cover recovery. We know he's going to cover more about domain authority and really leveraging domain authority. We know he's going to cover souping up your PBNs. If there's another topic that you would really love Jimmy to cover, and you want to put that on the Facebook group, then we will take those as suggestions. And I think that this kind of thing really kind of inspires Jimmy. I think in Jimmy's past life, he was some sort of a mischievous fairy or sprite or something like that. It's a little we never know what Jimmy's gonna come with. Always a little bit of mischief in him, but I think that's one of the things that makes him such a surprising and dominating force. We've got Nathan Bass says Teespring. So you be careful how to dominate porn. Thank you, Russell. Thank you very much, Russell.
I want some topics that you might want to learn about at the live event, because I mean, my goal is to help the people that come to OMG Live. I mean, I like helping people in general, but I really want to see what people want. So if there's a topic, if you want me to cover, local or whatever, YouTube, I mean, there's a lot of different areas I know about, and so it's for me, when I'm asked to present certain topics, it's like, well, what do people want to learn about?
Yeah. So anyways,
if anybody has suggestions, throw them in there. And
fear not that even if you throw out the wrong thing, David Mills will mix it. No, but in all seriousness, we really do genuinely want to know. So if you have some topics you'd like Jimmy to cover, how many people are excited about? Give me an A+ if you're excited about Jimmy going over in detail his $100,000 in 30 days case study. How many people are just into that, into the idea of just dominating, with Amazon and A+? Is that a big man? We're gonna have a good day on Facebook here. We're gonna crash Facebook at some point here. Yeah, a lot of people like that A+ stuff. Let me tell you something else that Jimmy's gonna be able to go into a little bit more this year. Jimmy ranked a site number 1. This site makes tens of thousands of dollars a month in profit. Sometimes 6 figures a month in profit on its own. And I'm going to be a little bit vague because I don't want to give away the keyword, but I'll tell you that this is a site that gets tens of thousands of searches per month, exact match, for this keyword that's ranked number 1 for. And those searches, if you were to pay for them, would cost in excess of $250,000 per month. And I really want you to know that we're playing with some serious hardware here. And when we do OMG Live Nashville, it's a little something different. We do make it so somebody all the way from a beginner all the way through advanced can have huge success with it. And if you're a beginner, you're gonna have a lot more to learn. But that's great. That's great news and a lot more ground that you can cover. But this is going to be a seriously exciting event. What I want to do before we bring David Mills live here to talk strategy and to get into a new series that he's unveiling. This will be very exciting for me. It's the first time we've had David on one of these style events, and we've had more and more people calling for David to come out here and speak out on one of these live events. Russell and Sue, I really wanted to turn things over to you for a few minutes here, just to talk about your vision. As you're, let's say, Kurt sitting in the audience, or someone like Kurt or like Scott, last year who's coming in green, who maybe hasn't made a lot of money online. I know that one of the really great moments for me was when we got a letter from Rachel. Let me see if I can find that letter that I got in from Rachel just really shortly after OMG started, or right after OMG Live finished last year. Just going to take a second here to find this. My computer is not exactly cooperating. But I'd love to hear your guys' vision as somebody sits in the audience, maybe somebody who's brand new to this stuff, or even a veteran who's had some success but really looking to take things to the next level. What your vision is, what you have in store for them coming into. Let's see if this is the right thing here. Yeah, here it is. This is a letter from Rachel. She sent this to me on my birthday, my birthday was less than 30 days after OMG Live Nashville. Hey, I wanted to give you my post-Nashville earnings report. I just signed up my first client for $10,000 a month and got my first check last Sunday. I have another meeting with somebody else on Thursday. That seems like a great opportunity. A little shy of 30 days from Nashville, my life's already changed so much. Yeah, and then she just joined Project X and so forth. Absolutely amazing. Russell and Sue, when you see this, when you see Rachel's earnings report and you envision being somebody like her sitting in the audience, somebody who's brand new, or somebody who's already sat and started having some success with OMG, ready to take things to the next level, Russell and Sue, please just take a few minutes, open mic here. What do you have in store for the audience for OMG Live Nashville 2014?
Sue, are you still here?
I am.
I'm not
Market
sure what-
domination, baby.
Exactly. I'm not sure how much you want to get into this. I mean, we have a lot of things specifically targeted to that type of success. We're going to get deeper into exploiting and dominating local search rankings. That's one of the things we talked about, Sue, right? We're
Yep.
still verifying that with David Mills and Mike. Also, we're going to move into ranking factors and beyond. As you know, Jimmy and Sue and I are working more to the point. Sue and Jimmy are working anywhere between 5 and 6 hours a day on some of the new methods we have. So actually, I'm afraid to read this, Sue, because you've been very threatening to me when I talking about this. So why don't you? Well, I've got 5 things on the list here. I just don't know what I'm supposed to read. I don't want.
Yeah, go for it.
I don't want to feel a whip. Okay.
There's no whips, not yet.
No, I don't know. You've been in a mood today. Ranking factors and beyond. As in our domain authority stacking course, we revealed some of the one-feed stuff. I think we should bring that, don't you?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay,
That was so cool.
Yeah, there's a brand new one-feed to rule them all that totally enhances, and Jimmy has picked apart my one-feed to rule them all system with Sue, and we put it back together. And the best thing I can do is talk about it as automated domain authority stacking. That's the best way. And for those of you who don't know domain authority stacking, we're going to show you all these methodologies live. It's going to enhance, support, and expand Jimmy's talk, which I don't know how. I think it's probably a full day. Whatever the case may be, we'll show you how it integrates. Interestingly, it integrates in some cool ways with recovery and how to make sure that you never have to do recovery. And that's one of the things I didn't expect in the various courses we have is, you know, how to not get yourself banned in the first place. That's one of the biggest things I've seen students learning from Jimmy. So that's what we're talking about, is ranking factors and beyond, the new one-feed system, greatly enhanced for 2014 and beyond at Evergreen. Also, we're going to be talking, and some of that stuff, by the way, guys, there's going to be exclusively talked about there. We're going to be showing you some stuff that's exclusive at OMG Live this year. We're also going to get a bit into personal brand broadcasting, how to incorporate social media into your personal brand. I think that's something that's forgot a lot in the SEO industry, where, you know, quite honestly, after OMG Live, ranking is going to be like ridiculously easy for you, almost disappointingly so. You're just going to go, oh, that's it? I mean, a lot of you are working way too hard.
How many people are nervous about being
disappointed
disappointed in
exactly
how?
with it.
Yeah, I'd love a show of hands. If the thought of, you know, maybe like a hashtag disappointment or a frowny face. No, don't any frowny face. Just
Well, I mean,
yeah, just kind of
what I meant by that is if you don't give the things that require attention the attention that they deserve, they get more attention than they deserve. Problem with ranking is that people give it more of the wrong kind of attention than it deserves, and by the time you leave, you'll give it the exactly appropriate attention using Jimmy's method, Sue's, and Greg Morrison's method. Then you can focus on some of the things that we see people failing. It's really funny. Like I've watched Jimmy and Sue get like ridiculous things ranked over the last 4 months, and it's getting hammered by traffic, and things are converting like less than 1%. As soon as you make 1 or 2 changes on there, it's like, oh, put this personal video with like an honest like sales appeal on there. Boom. Hashtag start selling, right? I mean, let's not forget like the basic. I mean, you could do a page without Mike Long trying to sell a product, you know, like Project X, and then as soon as Mike Long's video goes on there, the conversion goes up 40%. I don't think this stuff should be forgotten. So we're going to have a reminder course on how conversion, you know, enhances that. Also, the SEO recovery and tactics, we're going to tie into how to use what Greg Morrison is calling PBN Reloaded. And we're going to talk a little bit about the new release of Social Explosion, which will be released by that time. And we have, of course, we have versions coming out. But we're going to be showing you how software integrates and giving you a couple goodies as well that are included on the OMG Live. So we'll
Yeah,
be throwing
there's something I haven't disclosed to you yet, Russell.
Exactly.
I'm sorry.
I know.
So,
I knew you were hiding it from me, and it really pisses me off. No, I'm kidding. Everyone, so you know, she's upstairs. We've had a lot of coffee. We've been up all night. We are in the same. We are at Zoom Secret Labs, but I hear her talking and whispering at Jimmy at night, just through the, up the stairs, and I hear her say, "Okay, we'll build the bubble." So we have some stuff coming. She just hasn't told me what it is. In terms of software, that's going to be a couple of plug-in based things that are exclusive
Yeah.
for you guys.
Yeah.
And really, I know what it is. At least I was lobbying for it. So we're going to talk about that. But really, this is not the appropriate place to give this one until we have Mike and Dave Mills, kind of sign off on that. But it's really, really cool stuff.
I gotta tell you,
I'm stopping talking now.
Yeah, well, I'm just a little worried that we're going to sell out tonight. I'm watching. I'm watching.
They're
no, but I didn't expect. You don't really stick up an order page and get these kinds of orders without any sort of a sales pitch. It's all
right.
Anyways, I want to welcome some people. All right, so Jason Patterson was the first person to buy. I noticed that in his comments and special delivery instructions, he wrote, and I quote, Jimmy Kelly. I'm not kidding. He really did. He spelled it out with 6 M's and 5 Y's, and
That's
it was
funny.
very cool. Yeah, so that was Jason
It's officially
Patterson.
a meme.
Yep, it is. And then Ira Borden was next. Then let's see here. Then after Ira, Janet Bruno joined. So I think Janet's probably fired up about the Amazon Plus stuff. Then Jason Patterson ordered again, but he said this one is for one of my employees, Paul. Just registered one for me, meant to hit the 2 quantity. So Jason's bringing himself and a friend. Then we have one. Who's this guy? Cotton Grammar. Is anybody excited about Cotton Grammar being at OMG Live Nashville? I know I am. That's going to be awesome. So he's confirmed. And let's see who else we got here. Mary Semmer is coming. Mary is somebody who right away, Rocket Shot started having success as soon as she joined Project X. So it's very cool to have her there. And Dan Scott is our most recent golden ticket owner. So anyways, it's just racking up fairly quickly. It is going to be at the same small hotel, Drury Plaza. The room can, fire codes and stuff like that can only hold but so many people. And so, like I said, it's probably going to sell out, but maybe extremely quickly. But, there's nothing we can do about that this year. David Mills said it's going to be the way it's going to be. We just had such incredible success from last year from people jumping in, and we expect to have more and more success this year. So really appreciate getting the sneak preview from Kurt, from Jimmy, from Russell, and from Sue. What I want to do now, I'll segue back over to this maybe before the end of things and let you know how things are going, so you can join us for Project X. What I want to do now, Russell, Greg Morrison was at your Amazing Start event, and he reported back to me. He was really excited. He loved being there. Yours and Sue's event, and of course Jimmy was integral with that event. And he said that you made a comment about David Mills and the way that OMG is run from a business standpoint. And I don't want to put you on the spot. This kind of thing tends to work badly. You're more of a preparation-oriented person, Russell. So I really want to let you off the hook if you want to be let off the hook. But do you know what I'm talking about when I bring this up?
Sure, yeah. And no, that's okay. I mostly just make stuff up, so that's cool.
So at the event, my understanding was that you discussed the kind of the business structure of the business that I refer to as a benevolent dictatorship. With David Mills being the benevolent dictator, but the OMG business.
I live in a malevolent dictatorship over here with Sue, so it's all good.
So my understanding was that you made some comments about how about how well our business is run and so forth, and your thoughts on it. Would you care to recap a little bit of that, even though it was at CERT?
Yeah, absolutely. On day 6, we have something. In fact, Sue wanted to do this at OMG Live, but that's on hold until I have a real conversation with you and Dave Mills. I just don't know that it fits there. But on day 6 of our certification event, we have something called business architecture, where it's pretty advanced stuff. After we cover SEO, silo architecture, and all the technical craziness. Then we get into persuasion architecture. We talk about all the great persuaders and marketers out there, some of whom I've studied under and with, including Mike Long, actually, which is number 12. We talk about Mike specifically at the event and what he's done in the last 5 years. David Mills specifically we talked about in business architecture, because one of the books that we use a lot is the Lean Startup. We use something called startup procedures and pivot points. And when it's time to, go beyond just SEO ranking and really look at the product projections and what you stand to make, and what is the sales funnel, and what are your channels and your pivot points. By pivot points, we simply mean, what is your business model? Are you selling high-ticket items, a few high-ticket items, or a whole bunch of low-cost items, or both? And how does that work? Well, Dave Mills and Mike Long through the years, and I know Dave Mills is the business architect behind a lot of your systems, Mike, but it's a case study all of its own. It stands aside and beyond. I've been in this biz for a decade now, and I'm not even going to get into your numbers because it's nobody's business unless you say it is, but David really knows how to set up a business architecture that has an incredibly low overhead but a very high conversion rate and still bring value to every single person that leaves, without exception. It's incredibly rare. And so that's why we use it as a case study. We have this conversation, and that's what Greg is talking about. We started looking at business architecture. We even have what we call a whiteboard hour, where every person comes up to the board and actually forget SEO silo architecture for a second, forget persuasion and marketing and sales, has a real business architecture. What is your business process tied to your marketing process? And so that's where that conversation came up, Mike. Hope that makes things a little clearer.
Yeah, I really appreciate that.
Sure.
Very much. It was very meaningful, and I agree with you very much when Greg reflected that back to me. Jimmy, you've gotten the chance to actually partner with David and work with him on projects. This is going to be the first time today that when we have David live on an OMG event, on a webinar event like this. I mean, we may have had something like a long time ago, but anyways, we'll call this the first time. I wanted to give you the chance to put the word out about what it's like working with David and just your business experience of it, not to take away from anybody else who's great. And you've worked with a lot of top guns, very talented people. You worked in the Department of Defense, and maybe some people had their personality quirks, but certainly plenty of smart people, plenty of great people. What's your experience like working with David Mills in terms of just enjoying the experience, success, financial, all those kinds of things? What's it like working with David Mills?
It's phenomenal. I mean, first off, I consider him a great friend, and it's a real privilege to be able to work with him on some of these projects. And, I don't want to say this to come across bad or anything, but I mean, he's got to be like one of the most brilliant people that I've met. I mean, he's super sharp. I mean, I see him, he's almost surgical with the way he sets things up and the way he implements his game plans. I mean, it's just phenomenal. On a strategy point of view, I mean, there's no one else you'd want to have. So it's just been a real honor and privilege, and he's amazing.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. This is a little bit of a goofball thing. I show this graphic every once in a while. This is Dave Sharfman, and when I met Dave Sharfman, this has nothing to do with SEO for a second here, but it does talk about teaching and success. When I first met Dave Sharfman, he was like a lot of members. This goes back all the way to 2004, 2005. Dave was somebody who, Dave Sharfman here was somebody who really got kicked around his local game store. He was a Magic the Gathering player, and he wasn't very successful. He was very frustrated, and he joined our MTG Secrets training program for Magic, which David Mills designed and created. And like a lot of the people who were involved with that MTG Secrets course, David Sharfman here had success. And in fact, he's gone on to become a world champion level player. This is him holding up a $40,000 check and a big trophy, and it was a big moment for him. And I remember getting the early annihilation reports. We called them annihilation reports back then. They're a lot like the Magic version of earnings reports. But I remember getting those first building blocks earnings reports from Dave Sharfman. Even years and years after we stopped doing that business, that Magic Secrets business, I would get letters from people reflecting back how much David Mills had changed their life and how much they used the lessons that they learned from David Mills in life, in relationships, in business. We had the same sort of reaction in the relationship advice space, where we were helping guys have better successful relationships and so on. Incredible success behind the scenes with consulting clients and millions of dollars earned. So the success, how many people, give me a number one on that Facebook thread, if you've ever gotten the feeling that OMG is just something so different. If it's just so somehow different, maybe you can't put your finger on it. Maybe you can. Maybe you have some theory why it is that it is so different. Certainly there's a number of talented people out there putting together courses and coaching and training out there. So we're not trying to say we're by any means the best, but there's just something about it that's so neat. So yeah, this was cool. Daniel Tomic put #special. It was funny. I was about to say so different, so special. A lot of people are chiming in right now. That difference, I remember, relatively recently, Greg Morrison expressing that so many of David's ideas that he'll go along with, but he just not sure that they're going to work. It just seems so far-fetched to him, and then they go on and just, they're just so successful for us. Dave Key says, square root of 1 equals 1. I want to bring Dave Keys on and let Dave be kind of the final person to introduce David Mills, because Dave's just got a great way of expressing David Mills and the law of implication, things that David teaches. So I'm going to bring Dave live. I'm going to make him an organizer as well, so you can see your comments. Dave was, of course, one of the big stars of our Webby last week. David's quickly rose up Dave Keys, and he's making that $20,000 plus per month range. Just in the short time since he joined OMG in January. Dave Keys, are you there? How would you put the word out?
Can you hear me okay?
I can. Let me kind of give you the final word on introducing David Mills.
Today.
Yep, no problem.
All right, David Mills is a person that you will find, just like OMG is different, David Mills is different. And David Mills specifically met a critical need I had coming into the gateway of OMG, because I was at a point in my business where I needed some clear, verifiable direction into my next steps in dealing with SEO in particular and my whole business model. And I was in Hawaii on vacation, and I came down sick. And I mean, really sick. Like it was like I'd had more fun standing on the edge of the Grand Canyon, burning up $4,000 and throwing it over the edge and watch it go down. But all I could do is lay there in bed and spend some time doing something productive, because I wasn't well enough to go out. So I took the entire law of implication course there in Hawaii in my 2 weeks. I just consumed it. And law of implication was really the process by which I was able to determine whether OMG was a good investment for me. And I've said often that law of implication, it's $99 to get in there. I was just talking to somebody about it again today. It's like, you've got $99. Go take the course until you understand it. And Mike, a long time ago in one of your Webbies before I signed up, you said, it's our job to teach and it's your job to understand. And that is the approach that that I took with law of implication, that I recommend, is that you go and consume it until you understand. And I certainly came in with a mind to understand my best course. Law of implication enabled me to clearly understand my best course without doubt, without ambiguation. It totally disambiguated the whole process of understanding what I needed to do in my business to be successful. And then it became clear that the next step was going to be joining OMG. But I will tell you that the $99 invested in law of implication really was worth the 10 times that amount. It was worth to me 100 times that amount. That the value of law of implication far exceeds its price tag. It's just exponentially in excess of the price tag. The price tag, you know, it has to have a price of something. I mean, because of value, it would be an insult. It's almost an insult to have it at $99. But I understand David's purpose in doing that, that he wants that to be able to spread to anybody who's willing to come in and learn from it. And this kind of is a thing of, if you are willing to learn, this is the place where you can learn. And for me, it did become a transitional point to success in OMG. And I was so certain of OMG before I actually joined OMG. I picked up the phone the night before and I called up a client once I decided I'm going to go into OMG, I'm going to do this. And I called my client, my prospect up, and I said, look, we're going to rock and roll this market. And I've decided to make this investment in this course. I have found out how to make the SEO work. We'll take your business and we will rock and roll your real estate business for your city, and we will take it. And guess what? It's his now. He is on page one for all the dominant terms that bring in all the traffic. He's getting leads from his website every day in his business. So, you know, that came true, and I knew that it would before I even joined Project X. Project X, I walked in, I said, yep, there's my value right there. There's my investment. As soon as I walked in, I could see that my investment in Project X was secured. And what enabled me to take that little tiny step of faith into Project X was understanding that I got from law of implication. One final note is that David Mills points out that you can begin to process things using the law of implication in a kind of a parallel paradigm. You can learn the law of implication and begin to apply it even before you fully accept or integrate its worldview. You can start application right away because, well, that's the nature of truth, is that truth properly applied has success as the outcome. And that's what I have witnessed again and again with law of implication, is the success being the inevitable outcome. You know, I don't mean perfectly everything I do is successful, but that success is the inevitable outcome of following law of implication.
Well, and one of the cool things, Dave, I mean, you walked in, you were really struggling with your business, and you just rocketed forward. So like that, you know, either you had a very accurate hallucination or you crushed it.
Yeah, I quadrupled my income as a result. I quadrupled from where I was to where I am now. It was 4 times. And so, you know, that was like $5,000 a month to $20,000 a month and increasing. I just picked up another client last week. He came into my office and sat down with me and walked out with an agreement to pay me $1,500 a month and a share of the business.
Wow.
You know, I mean, that's how certain the outcome appears, not just to the person that knows law of implication, but the person that you show the outcome to, they're convinced too. It's just inherently convincing.
Yeah. All right, Dave, I'm gonna mute you because there's a little bit of an echo coming from me speaking to you, but you can, I believe you can unmute yourself if you need to. I want to thank you very much for that. I really, I think that articulates things extremely well. Matt McGee asks, can you elaborate a bit more about what David Mills does for OMG outside of the law of implication series? I'm sincerely curious. Need to learn more about LOI too. David is the one who thought of it in the first place. He designed it. All final decisions that we make go through David. I'm not saying that every anchor text that Greg uses gets checked through him or anything like that, but it's certainly he certainly makes the final decisions. He's also the person who tends to originate most of the moves that we make. He invented Project X. He invented OMG Live Nashville. You hear him in the background getting ready to speak. So hopefully,
whoopsies, I'm unmuted.
No problem at all. I just wanted to let you know that, David.
Yeah.
So David, David was the one who envisioned SEO. Of course, Greg and I are both integral to it, and we all have, we're all equal partners in it. We all play our important role. But David, we're opening things up here. This is such a great celebration. It's great to have you here. We are quickly selling out OMG Live Nashville, by the way. So I don't know about your seating plan, but it seems fun.
Mike mentions that every day or so now that maybe the room's too small. Why don't we?
Yeah, expand the size of the room. But anyways, but that's okay. So, but I am so excited having you on this event. Your most recent law of implication recording that you released in OMG Live or in the Project X membership area is such a revelation to me. And I know that lots and lots of people have been going through it because I can see how many people are going through and consuming it and reading up, watching the video and so on. So what I wanted to do, David, after that extended introduction is turn things over to you. Let you have things your way. And I'm just really excited. This is a picture of David and his beautiful wife, Olia, from a couple of years back in La Jolla. And David, would you like to take control of the screen, or what's the next?
I think that's from 7 or 8 years back. Yeah, I can take control of the screen.
Okay, great. So Dave, from 7, 8 years ago, I've got a more recent picture here somewhere. Let me see. David,
it's okay. It's okay.
But anyways, I showed it earlier. All right, David, I will make you the presenter. Oh, I actually never made you an organizer. This is a little silly. Jimmy, usually I make everybody an organizer, so Jimmy couldn't see people's questions and comments, or nobody else could, Russell and Sue, so I have to make them organizers as well. Okay, so David, I just made you an organizer so you can now see the questions and comments. Would you like to also become the presenter, or do you want to leave it on my screen?
I have some slides that I can have on the screen.
Okay, great. All right, I'm going to make David the presenter, and then I will be here listening intently with everybody else.
Okay, and thank you guys very much, Dave Keys and Jimmy and Russell and Mike, for everything that you said. Appreciate that very much. Okay, just looking at my sound here, looks like it's a reasonable level. All right, what I want to talk about today for you guys is to talk about advantages, spotting them, taking advantage of them, just kind of how to look at it in general, not screwing them up once you have them. And a lot of the things I talk about, it can, at first glance, it's easy to, I don't know, presumably it won't come across as particularly cliche or overly obvious. I believe I have some things to say that'll be counterintuitive and so forth. And I've seen throughout my last couple decades and so forth that there's a way that people don't really deal with advantages in a way that is fully advantageous, well, we could say. And I think if you have at your fingertips what I have to share with you now, it can be helpful as you apply it. All right, I have here on this slide, I said, if you don't have a clear advantage, then you're going to get, this is kind of by logic, you're going to get default. Like whatever would have happened is going to happen. And you might have good luck, you might have bad luck. But yet it's pretty common that people have a lot of action bias, right? They want to do stuff. In America, people take pride and talk about how busy they are all the time, which if you reflect on that, it's a little bit ridiculous to be proud of being busy, because then you're a bit cluttered. It's actually much harder to take advantage of advantages when they come up at the right time and so forth if you are generally busy. But anyway, so people have action bias and they want to do stuff. They also want to believe that they're intelligent, right? By default, we want to believe in that we're already smart and good. And so it's easy for people to convince themselves that they don't quite need an advantage or they already have one, and or if they just really try hard and will things to work strongly. But all of that ultimately, if you think about it, right, it amounts to not having an advantage, right? If you just say, well, I'm just going to make it work and or I'm smart enough, I can do this, or those other guys can do it, I'm sure I can too. Anything like that is just presuming that you're sort of already inherently so great that you don't need an advantage. But so starting by recognizing that can really help. I tend to be very unwilling to move forward with things unless I just have to, right? If you have to, you have to. But you often need to take much less action and rush a lot less than people actually do. And so I'm happy to not move forward until I have an advantage. And often if we look at OMG Live from last year, the tentative plan was maybe to do it in April, which was about 6 months further than November. There was no idea of doing it in November. It was just, let's say it was not October, maybe September or even August of last year. We were thinking, hey, well, and we got here. We moved here to Franklin, Tennessee, near Nashville, and we saw this great hotel nearby. And we thought, hey, we can. And we used to live in Charlottesville, where there was not an airport very close that was large, and so it wasn't a good. We would never do a live event in Charlottesville. Then we moved. Mike and myself moved nearby here, and we had the idea to maybe do a live event. And now, Russell and Sue do a teaching live event in general, but there's not a lot of real teaching live events that occur. So our sort of default idea was to just do a live event that was, we wouldn't want to call it this, but really, if we looked at it by acknowledging reality, it'd be a bit of a necessarily have to be a bit of a pitch fest where you have kind of these drive-by appearances by various people, right? Because if we did all the content ourselves, that wouldn't work very well, because we already had a coaching program called No Holds Barred, which means we're teaching everything we know already. So what are we going to do in a live event? Say, well, we're going to teach something else, but we're already promised to teach what, Greg promised to reveal everything he had. So the point is that we didn't really have much of an advantage. There's already events that are pretty established and that do a fairly good job of just being purely for like networking and hearing what's out there and giving sales pitches, and they don't quite advertise it that way, but that's what it comes down to. And I didn't really just want to necessarily do that, and so there wasn't really an advantage. So we thought maybe we'd do it in the spring in April, but I wasn't going to rush, and so I said I didn't want to schedule it for then or necessarily move forward with doing a live event at all, or lock ourselves into it. But then Mike was working with Jimmy, and Jimmy came out, had some incredible stuff, and they started doing some recordings about it. And that was in let's see, is maybe September, that must have been August or September. And it was so terrific and so timely that I said, let's just have a live event. Now that there was our advantage. And so by not wanting to quote unquote rush and do it in April when I didn't have an advantage yet, and I wasn't just looking around for an advantage, I'll get to that. If you're really trying to find an advantage too actively, you can start, if you get your goals a little bit wrong, you can start to project advantages on things that aren't really advantages. In other words, you can kind of make yourself believe something's an advantage when it's really not that big of a deal. But what this just kind of popped up, what Jimmy had going, and then Russell and also lives right nearby in Nashville. And so with the timeliness of what Jimmy had, and then with Russell being nearby, and how incredible Russell and Sue are, then there was our event. It just kind of jumped off the page, and we did it 6 months before we even thought we would. So by not rushing, by not locking ourselves in, then it turned out we did things even much faster, and we were able to adjust to when something real came up. So that just gives a little bit of a story there, and of course it turned out very, very well. Okay, so without an advantage you get default, and you really want to acknowledge this and understand it, and not just think that you can will yourself ahead. It's not that won't ever work, but it also predictably at times won't work that well, and you'll get in a panic and things will go wrong and so forth. We could have just sort of convinced ourselves that, hey, we're OMG, we're terrific, we have a terrific culture, we have wonderful OMGers, and Greg's amazing and so forth, and so that's all we need. We could just do a live event. But we already had that. We were already taking advantage of those advantages, right, with our coaching product. And so what was the reason for a live event at that point? There really wasn't an advantage that had to do with a live event. And we weren't really taking advantage, we wouldn't be taking advantage of the fact it was live and so forth. Instead, it turned out with Jimmy that there were things that we wouldn't really want to disclose on the internet, that really could work so well on a live event that wasn't recorded. And so we were, once again, with the live event, there are advantages that are specific to it being live, and I wanted to harness those, right, or to understand what those were. I had a conversation with Mike. I said, what's different? Let's talk about what's different about a live event that you can't get. I didn't want to have an event where it basically just could have been online and it would have been pretty much the same thing, right? So we wanted to take advantage of the specific differences and potential advantages of a live event, which we did. So then the next thing people do is they'll, and I have examples lined up for these, but just want to give a sense of it. They'll incorrectly identify things that aren't really an advantage as an advantage. One really easy way to get yourself to do that, as I referenced before, is to feel like you just want to have an advantage in a way that's a bit too aggressive. When you have a goal, it's a little bit like if you have a goal to believe that you're attractive, right? Then you're gonna start thinking every waitress finds you attractive, right? You're gonna start projecting and having some wishful thinking, right? Because that's what waitresses do, is they kind of act in a way that is very similar to how someone would act if they found you attractive, right? So it's very easy to project and just sort of convince yourself that something's an advantage. Or if a guy has some money and he's working out a lot, then he can misidentify that as a particularly strong advantage when it comes to women and think, oh, they're going to just fall at my feet because I have money and I'm in good shape. But somewhat surprisingly, that isn't, in practice, that's not that big of an advantage. It's a bit of an advantage compared to not having it, but mostly it just doesn't get you blocked, right, by just being particularly not having that in your favor. But then what you can do is if you, another thing is something I talked about in the video that I posted 2 days ago, which is an idea of neurological closeness. I think I have this on a slide here. I'll just skip over here for a moment. So neurological closeness is a term that I coined to refer to the idea that things that are kind of close to us in time or space, or kind of big in our mind, and they're kind of right there in our face and easy to see, they're easy to put too much weight on. So if someone has money or they're in really good shape and they work out, it's very easy to see that. And so it can look like more of an advantage than it is. Also, things that happen very close to a result tend to look like they have much more to do with the result than they actually do. If we take the Great Recession or the crash before it, with the credit freeze and so forth, then it's very easy to blame either bankers or the person who was president at the time, when in fact, if you are more fully informed and step back and look at things more logically, then there was a massive escalation in housing and urban development that was done executively by the president before that, also involving when Andrew Cuomo was head of that, where they gave Acorn pretty much absolute power to blackmail banks. Banks could not expand. They couldn't basically open new branches. I think I have either new branches or expand into other regions or whatever, without literally, and I'm almost completely literally, without Acorn giving them permission. There was a way that was done where that's quite literally what happened, and then that was used to blackmail them into giving bad loans. And you can just measure that, where as soon as that policy was put in place executively, it wasn't through an act of Congress, then the amount of bad loans they wrote jumped to like 4.2 trillion. From before that, it was several billion. And then so, but that's not my point of that is that's not neurologically close. It's very neurologically separated, right, from the event itself. And the reason I mention that example is it's fascinating to look and see that virtually, sometimes people will blame the Community Reinvestment Act, but that particular thing still doesn't get mentioned, that I just mentioned. And so virtually everyone could just miss that. And which is good news for you and your business, because when you stop making this neurologically close mistake when you're planning your business and when you're deciding where your advantages lie and where to look for advantages and so forth, then you can see there's so little competition, if any. Right? It isn't like even 10% of the population realizes the cause of the huge crash. Maybe a handful of people, or if that, in the entire country do. Also, if you look at fixing healthcare, what's neurologically close when it comes to dealing with healthcare? I'm mainly going to use business examples, but it's just particularly easy to illustrate this with this. It also, by using these kind of global examples from social policy, you can see how virtually everyone misses this stuff, which can encourage you when it comes to business, where it's just so easy to be like you're moving while everyone else is standing still, if you understand these types of things that I'm showing you. What's neurologically close with dealing with the issue of people having enough health care is things like health insurance, because that comes right when you need to pay for health care. There's your health insurance, right? You're dealing with health insurance. But much farther away, neurologically, much harder to see unless you just look for it, in which case I don't see why it's so hard to see. And then there's things that are close to health insurance, like letting health insurers compete across state lines and so forth. That's a reasonable idea, but it's still just dealing with things that are pretty obvious and close. But what's really going on is there is an artificial tightening of supply of both doctors and medical equipment and medical treatments by the government, right? The amount of residencies in particular is a huge bottleneck. It's probably by far the biggest bottleneck. Also, I was pre-med, and when I was pre-med, they really just destroy your desire and ability to become a doctor when you're pre-med. And they're not encouraging you to become a doctor. They're just trying. It's really unbelievable when you go to class, to college to become a doctor. It's extremely discouraging. So you have these people, and it's not for people that want to heal people. The only thing, you just need to really be someone that wants to really do well on tests. And when I did an internship with doctors, they weren't very happy, and they were saying it's mostly just a game of cover your butt legally, right? So because you also have the difficulty with malpractice, which isn't just money for doctors, but it's just it creates a whole culture for doctors where they're having to deal with covering themselves for malpractice suits. And so the whole thing is pretty unpleasant and very artificially constrained. And as I said, especially with residencies, which is on the way to becoming a doctor after you graduate from med school before your internship. Those are the very small number of those, and the government, ultimately it's government licensing that constricts that. And one of the great forces for that is that doctor lobbies, right, doctor groups tend to, I'm not saying individual doctors are not, but certainly the organizational groups of them want the government. Whenever you hear licenses from government, they're always sold as though it protects the people, but really what it does, it protects the salaries of the people that are already established before the government installs licenses, right, for a hairdresser or for doctors. So there's your big problem. And then the FDA, right, just is unbelievable what it does, where it just puts a price tag of hundreds of millions of dollars or tens of millions of dollars on getting medical devices approved. And so then they're just astronomically expensive, and so on and so forth. People come from other countries, want to practice being a doctor. They can't even practice at all. It's like illegal to heal people, or to at least attempt to, or whatever, even if that's disclosed. And so all of that is certainly a huge part of the problem, but it's so neurologically far that it's not being dealt with, and the result is a horrific amount of pain and suffering for probably tens of millions of people. And it's all just not that hard to solve theoretically, but that kind of stuff is hardly discussed theoretically. All right, so just to give a sense of neurologically close, I'll get back to using examples mostly that are on our topic of internet business here. Let's okay, and then so you can, when you misidentify advantages or causes of a problem, in other cases when you're trying to solve a problem, then that neurological closeness problem is going to cause you to miss real advantages. To go back to the relationship thing about guys being built or having money, by far a great advantage that's easier to get is for guys to be attentive, right? Where they're generally just learn to be attentive to what a woman wants to share, and then what they want to eat, right? And just what's going on with them. If you do that, it's just way more of an advantage than being in great shape or even having a lot of money. and it's easier to access, but it's a lot harder to see. And so relatively few guys have that going for them. And so if you realize that and build it up, then you have just an incredible advantage when you're dating, right? You also, it's just far easier to be happy in a relationship that you're already in if you understand that. For women, my best assessment is that most likely with a parallel thing to being attentive, it's not quite the same. But for women, it would be something like learning to kind of have the sort of a consistent and explicit attitude that of seeing their as something to be used for pleasure in various ways. Not as just like being attentive is not the only thing you have going for you as a guy, but if you don't have it, it's a real problem. But if you just have that attitude of a woman, as a woman, excuse me, of seeing your body as something that can bring great pleasure, not just with direct physical contact, but just kind of, walking around looking attractive to your guy and so forth. And no matter if you're not stunningly good looking, it doesn't matter. You just easily your guy can find you very attractive, right? Especially it's very easy to have happen no matter how attractive someone is. So if a woman realizes that rather than whatever else, or because what women do is they think, and whenever I generalize, I don't mean that every single person. I'm just talking generally. But I'm not being ridiculous if I seem to be when I'm generalizing. Of course, these individual results can vary, but it's helpful to know some of the main ideas so you can at least look for them. What women will do is they'll think, oh, guys just want sex. See, that's an example of neurological closeness, right? The error. That's an advantage of. It's an example of identifying a non-advantage that mostly a non-advantage of it is an advantage. Merely, I don't know, like. Of course, they're a little bit related, like thinking that, oh, guys want sex, and instead of thinking of your the other thing that I said about viewing your body as something that can cause pleasure, either just by being looked at or of course being some physical as well, but they're really quite different, and you can miss that. You can also, by misidentifying it, then you can lose respect for a guy or just think, oh, it's so simple, or whatever. So with the internet, I talked about this in an ebook that we realized we want to make available in Project X, and I think I'll finally put this on MP3s like I expected to when I did Commission Conspiracy. Right now the ebook's not really available at all, but we'll get it inside of Project X. But I talked about, and you might have heard us talk about this in different places as well, but if you look at the internet, and if you want to have an internet business, you want to identify what are the real advantages of the internet. A little bit like I thought about what are the real advantages of being live for OMG Live. It's specifically live, as opposed to teaching on the internet. One of which being live, you have potentially more privacy, right? But when you think of the internet, then at least two of the advantages that you don't have in conventional business are very low overhead, potentially. And another one is the existence of search engines. Have you ever been reading a physical book in real life, and felt like, oh man, it felt like there should be a search plate? Of course, just for a second. I don't mean like intellectually thought it. But you ever have like a split second impulse to do a search function? I have, and not that much. And of course, I don't can't think it intellectually. But for a second, I'm like, oh, I wish I want to search for this, and I realize, of course, I can't because it's a physical book. But with the internet, we're so used to that, right? Because you can just search for things. But search engines are the example of something. They're right in front of our face, but it's easy to not just notice how big of a deal it is in terms of the internet specifically, and really they can only exist on something like the internet. And so if you're going to have an internet business, then you should generally be taking advantage of those two things, the low overhead and the fact that search engines can exist. If you're not, then you're probably missing out on the real advantage of the internet, right? And it doesn't have to be search engine optimization, but learning to take advantage of search engines for free is really tremendous, right? Learning how to use them for paid advertising is totally good as well to add on. But being able to do it for free, because the free takes advantage of the low overhead, right? And one thing I pointed out, and I appreciate David Hood, who was talking to Mike, I think it was yesterday, and he was reminding Mike of this that he learned from me as I think in order to help, because he knew I'd be talking today. And David said that what he read there, it just really helped him because I pointed out that success in the internet with business is really inevitable because it's so low overhead that you can just keep putting one foot in front of the other until you succeed, especially if you understand that what you're trying to build, the way to measure your progress is through increasing understanding rather than results. The problem with going only by results, and this relates also to the problem with trying to identify advantages by results, you want to be able to look for advantages directly instead of when you try to identify things by results, you're going to often fall in the neurological closeness problem, or Mike coined a term years ago that we used in Magic, the strategy game we played, called like a glory hound. A glory hound is like kind of like the guy who delivered the last blow, like the big strong thing. In Magic, the idea is you're of the game is you're both wizards with 20 life points, and you cast spells, and some of those spells summon creatures, and you're attacking the other wizard and defending yourself and so forth, and trying to reduce him for 20 life to 0. And so if someone casts a spell and summons a big creature, and that creature really, does a great job and beats off the other wizard's creatures and helps you win the game, it's really easy to say that's why I won, when in fact there can be a lot of other things going on that gave you particularly strong advantages, but that guy tends to get the credit, right? So it's like a glory hound, as Mike says. So let me make sure I stick with my train of thought here. I was saying with the internet and with results, right? Often if people try to look for results, and then what the brain does, it looks for the biggest, most unique thing in the environment, and it attaches that to the result as the cause, or and that's often what people think of as an advantage. People say, oh, I want to give my child every advantage, but what they end up doing, or you're trying to succeed in the internet and you want to give yourself every advantage, what you end up doing is going kind of for the obvious glory hounds, right? The things that are closely connected with results, or that seem closely connected to results, mainly through the marketing, right? Is mostly what happens. But the thing that happens right before the result, or the big obvious thing, is often not really an advantage. Often there's something else that is so much more important, and generally people are missing, and generally you'll miss unless you intentionally counteract the neurological closeness glory hound thing and look for what's going to truly give you an advantage. And you mostly prepare the way for that by removing the illusions and blocks that are going to keep you from seeing it, and then you'll generally see it. However, and what you want to, by doing, and I've essentially pointed out already how to do that. You don't want a goal, you don't want a kind of an overly rushed action bias type of goal to have an advantage. Instead, you want a goal to understand or see or notice an advantage. Let's see here. Okay, I'll continue to the next slide in a second. And then it's quite easy to screw up advantages once you come across them. So with OMG, it's interesting to see with how various members of OMG and Project X react to things. Many people take advantage, because what we do, and because I'm aware of this advantage thing, you can also contrast having an advantage to having a blueprint. Many people think that they want a blueprint or a set of instructions by which to succeed in an internet business, and no such thing really exists. But a lot of people don't want to hear that. They really want to believe that there's a set of instructions or a blueprint they can follow, and when people want to believe something, they'll find a justification for believing it. And they think that they're using their mind, but they're not. I mean, they think they're being smart. But when you want to believe something, any justification will do. It seems like you're using reason, but you're just justifying, and in this case, an incorrect belief. What you want to succeed in life, or to get a result, is to have an advantage and to deal properly with that advantage, as I'll continue and explain. A blueprint is no advantage at all, right? A set of supposed instructions on how to succeed in an internet business generally contains no advantage. It just says, get traffic, use this conversion template, and and so forth. But there's nothing that really distinguishes you from other people. Knowing the basics and knowing a blueprint, that can be useful, but it's useful as background, as a foundation to get you initiated in order to then look for advantages. It's fine to know the basics of trying to date. You might just be missing some real basic stuff, right? Or relationships. But then on top of that, you need to look for a proper advantage. Okay, let's go on here and see what I've written. Okay. As you come across what you think might be an advantage, then you want to focus on understanding it, which also means integrating it, and rather than attempting to control or even press an advantage. I'll explain that in a moment. When I talk about understanding, you want to have a mental model of the brain and your mind. It doesn't matter which word. You want to have a mental model where your brain is pretty fragmented. And think of something with, if you can, with a bunch of nodes kind of spread out over a large area. And the way your brain works is if one node lights up, then the nodes sort of nearest to it that are connected neurologically to it, those will light up too. And then it'll quickly dissipate. Like the rest of the cascade of neurons being lit up will fade rapidly. So things that are kind of one step away connected to anything that are associated in your brain or your mind, those come to mind or get lit up sort of quickly when an idea or a thought gets lit up. But then things that are more removed from that don't really get triggered very well. And that's why people can believe totally contradictory things depending on the context or depending on the question they're being asked. And it's also why you can think that you understand something and then end up not doing it all the time, or not doing it in many areas of life. Or people will have success in business but then fail with their family, or they'll have a good relationship with some people and not others, or their kids will end up being screwed up despite the fact they're successful in other ways. Is that they apply principles in one area and don't understand them in an integrated, constructed way where it's spread across your mind better. And to do that, you just need to explore something from many angles to try to apply it to different situations. It's partly why instead of just giving examples that have to do with internet business here, I try to give some from other areas, like obviously I've talked about relationships and public policy as well. It gives you, it's not just a more well-rounded understanding, but you need to kind of get it integrated with various nodes in different places of your mind in order for it to be used properly. And whenever you thought you understood something, but then you find that you're not applying it well, the problem is most likely this integration. And if you have the mental model I gave you of your mind being all these hundreds, thousands, millions of nodes spread out, then for important things, you want to have things interconnected properly. Now, just because you supposedly understand something in one context doesn't mean you won't act in a totally contradictory method, totally contradictory way in a different context. So when I see an advantage or when I see an extraordinary result, by the way, when you see a great result, there's going to be an advantage there somewhere. And I will, and including in your own life, if you get a great result with something, if you get a great result with something, some venture you do in the internet, or maybe you just have a great relationship with anyone in your life, if you, or any number of things, if you do great in Magic the Gathering, like we did, whatever it is, culturally, we're not supposed to focus in on those things and talk about them with people, right? Because it's supposed to be bragging or arrogance or whatever. But that's horrendous. You want to focus in on and really look at it deeply and from different angles, and ideally have someone in your life or multiple people that you can discuss great results that you get or that you see it somewhere else. It doesn't have to be you, of course. But with the good thing about when it's your own results is you see it, you're pretty close to it. So if you really focus in and try to look at why you're getting that result, and don't just what the first thing that someone will say if you talk about a great result that you get is they'll marginalize it, meaning they'll just or they'll do the neurological closeness thing. Well, you'll say, well, it's just because of X and this thing that's big and obvious, like oh, it's just because of SEO, or it's because I don't know what you hit on a great niche or this, that, or the other thing. But if you try to really understand what happened in a more integrated and deep way, then you can maybe find the real advantage that isn't the first most obvious thing that comes to mind. This also happens with people. When I met Mike, then I noticed there were certain places where he would get results that were extraordinary. For example, there was a game store in a little town, Harrisonburg, where Mike went to school in college, and a little game store. But he got a lot of people to that game store, and he didn't own it. He just participated in it, and it was really vibrant in a place where, I mean, he was getting the same kind of vibrancy as they would get in New York City, like the main game store in New York City, in a little college town, and that type of thing is extraordinary. Normally, people marginalize that sort of thing, and I didn't. And so I noticed what I did instead was I learned other places where Mike was doing it. I noticed other places where Mike would do something similar, and it's an extraordinary talent. And this was, maybe 20 years ago, and Mike was still young, and there were other things he would do wrong and so forth. And then so many people have the opportunity to really work with Mike. If you look at that aspect of what Mike does and the possibility of working with him closely as a massive advantage, which it is, then dozens of people passed up on it. And I was the only person to take it with any level of the level of seriousness that I did. So no one came anywhere near taking Mike's amazing ability, with anything like the level of seriousness that I did. And the result of that, now I'm a millionaire. And now, of course, it's pretty obvious, right, that most people listening, or all of them, would love to work on a business with Mike. But dozens of people passed up on that opportunity or gave up on it over the years. Those that didn't for a while, they would profit greatly, but then they would decide it was all them. One of the things Mike does is Mike amplifies what another person's doing, or what's going on, or an idea or a project greatly. But that tends to, when we don't realize that, it took us years to realize exactly what he was doing, because the problem is that people want to take credit, and it ends up being a conflict of interest in their own mind. If they acknowledge what Mike helped John Reese achieve $1 million day back when that was an extraordinary, and it was the first time ever anything like that had happened. And I got myself in a bit of trouble because I told another guy, another kind of big name guru that I was working with, I said, without Mike, that would have been like a $200,000 day. And then this guy was kind of a bad guy, and he told John Reese that I said that, just to kind of, he liked to undermine people, and kind of get his own. He think that it would help him get ahead socially if he kind of undermines other people. And John didn't like to hear that very much. But it isn't, something like that's not insulting if you understand what Mike does at all. I didn't mean it as an insult. I meant it to try to help the person understand what Mike does. It's true that it would have been probably a $200,000 day. Without John Reese, it would have been a $0 day, right? Mike needs something to amplify, and John gave him something great to amplify. But Mike would run into that problem with people where he would amplify them, and then it would all be confusing. Do we give Mike 80% of the credit? Do we give him 0% of the credit? And so they would just want to take all the credit and want to backstab Mike for that reason and so forth. Now we understand it, so we don't run into that issue in the same way. And it wasn't necessary for me to worry about credit for years, and it made it simple. And now, of course, Mike gives me tremendous credit when it's relevant. With OMG, I didn't really talk about myself for about a year, but then once I was going to start teaching you this stuff, then we have to start talking about me. And I obviously appreciate what people said earlier before I spoke. All right, now when I say instead of controlling or even pressing an advantage, well, why don't you want to press an advantage? Well, interestingly enough, you don't really need to press an advantage. Advantages are going to work on their own pretty well. If you instead, you're going to benefit more if you look to unblock advantages, clear the way for them, remove friction and vectors working against them. So then we came across Greg, and once again, people had passed up the opportunity to work with Greg, or they jumped at the chance, but then just didn't take it very seriously. I was able to take it seriously partly because I wasn't busy and rushed at the time, and I kept myself open until I had a real big advantage. There were other people that I had the opportunity to work with, and they were reasonable. They're pretty talented people, but I wasn't that excited. I wasn't overly excited about it because I was looking for a particularly something was again a particular advantage, and the opportunity to work with Greg was. And so then I really went all in, but I didn't try to control Greg. Sure, I'm like a benevolent dictator at OMG, but part of the reason why people like having me in that role is I just tend to filter out bad things, and help steer us well, but I don't at all try to control Greg, or he's incredibly free. With Mike, I end up talking about every day with him. But with Greg, it's probably every few months that we talk on the phone, right? We exchange emails here and there. But it's just, but instead I just try to unblock Greg, remove friction, remove issues that can come up. And now, Greg's happy, he's not blocked, and everything works extremely well. So you don't really need to press an advantage. As a matter of fact, if you try to, if you're focused too much on the advantage and pressing it, sometimes you can miss other stuff that's going on and miss other ripple effects. Let me give you an example I thought of from football that can help with this. Let's say that you're a team and you draft a really good fullback, I believe it is, who's the main person that runs the ball, like as opposed to being a receiver or a blocker or whatever. So you draft a guy who's really great running the ball from the line of scrimmage. If you do that, that can have. If you think smartly of the ripple effects, if you of that, one might be that your team spends more time on offense because running the ball tends to, like, it's called eating up the clock more, right? You take more time on offense. It means that your offense will be possibly on the field more, and your defense will be on the field less and be more rested. So maybe doing even more training on endurance for your offense might be a good way to take advantages from the ripple effects of that. Another thing might be let's see, with your defense if your defense is going to be more rested, maybe accentuate plays that are more strenuous, right, where they're really kind of putting a lot of effort in, and you can adjust that based on reality. If one game they're on the field a lot more, you don't need to run those type of plays. But if you were to practice a number of plays that are pretty strenuous and would be exhausting over the long term, but they would give you a pretty big advantage. So you're kind of looking at the ripple effects of the advantage and sort of building around it. One of the things people don't do when they come across a proper advantage is they don't start from scratch and look at everything in a new light. Instead, they'll tend to just keep on doing things. Remember, I talked about how people's minds, they're not integrated generally. They're fragmented. And so people will have an advantage and they won't start, as I mentioned, start from scratch. They'll just sort of do most things as they already are. And this relates to your internet business. Many people, they try to succeed on an internet business using a lot of the same assumptions of a conventional business, or that they just kind of absorb throughout their lives. People come into Project X and they'll use a lot of their assumptions from school in terms of how you learn. They'll want the information to be very organized for them, and we're plenty well organized, but it's totally what it helps someone learn is organizing your own information, not having it organized for you. But they'll carry forward all sorts of instructions. They'll say, can you just give me instructions so I can follow them? Not everyone, but some people, and people that end up not being successful, they just they think that if they're just given if they know the instructions, they'll follow it and then they'll get an A, right? Well, no, there's no one to give you an A for following instructions in real life and on the internet. You just need to get the result. You just need to instead recognize the advantage of the internet, understand you can't fail, keep overhead low, find a way to support yourself separately that is fairly simple, leaves you a decent amount of time and focus and creative focus for your internet business, and then just keep moving forward and increasing your understanding. You're going to succeed on the internet. But if you just take an internet business and you don't start from scratch, you don't look at what the real advantages are, and you operate normally, just try to glom the advantage onto your old assumptions. And assumptions aren't obvious. You need to step back and really take a look at them, right? And they're pretty hidden. Like the stuff you learned in school about how to succeed, it's not obvious to people. It's very deeply embedded. But think about what constitutes success in school. You can do this on your own time. And what got you rewarded, right? Having answers rather than questions got you rewarded. But that's not really the best way to be creative. You want to make sure to really ask the right questions. You don't really get much reward at all for asking the right questions in school, but you do in business ultimately. The glory hound, the neurologically close thing, is the answer, right? It's the inspiration, but the question is what got you there, is the real advantage. So if you learn to ask the right questions, and it's even better to write them down physically with a pen and paper, not even typing. then there's a tremendous advantage in life. It'll increase your intelligence greatly. But if you stop and think about what gets rewarded in school, not results, right? It's very subjective. It's, you know, and so then also people will write sales copy and they'll ask their friends what they think. Again, it's like school. It's like someone asking their teacher if you get an A for it. It doesn't matter what your friends think about copy. There's a pretty much no correlation whatsoever between what your friends think or your wife thinks or your husband thinks, whatever, of sales copy and what's actually going to sell. Instead, try to get in the mind of people walk through a day in the life of a customer and imagine them coming to your website. And then if you need to, try different things. But stop and think about those assumptions you picked up in school, what you got rewarded with, what was supposed to get you results, and try to leave those behind once you're aware of them. All right, I try to somewhat bring this to a close, but make sure I continue to cover things that are relevant here. So advantages, if you clear the way for an advantage, mostly they will press forward just fine. Otherwise, it's easy to burn things out. If I try to take the fact that I'm working with Mike and Greg and say, oh, we're a $5 million business now, which is about what we are per year, then I bet we, hey, these other guys, hardly anyone is, but if I look at the biggest guy and say, oh, he's a $15 million business or something like that, let's be like them. But then I just I can end up burning out our advantage. I don't want to do that. And I think I have that on another slide here. Okay, so you want to protect your advantage. You don't need to press it as far as it'll go necessarily. Things are often somewhat thresholdish in life. If you're getting great results, you don't need to necessarily double those results right away. You can do that, but do it safely. First, make sure you understand what you're doing and consolidate, and make sure you're not going to take yourself backwards. You don't need to overextend, burn out, or cut corners. Another thing people do with the internet itself is a tremendous shortcut, and so is Project X on top of that. It's great. It's a tremendous advantage. It's really all you need in terms of an advantage. If you just kind of clear the way for it, focus on it, don't come in with the wrong assumptions, kind of clear those out and so forth, then you're guaranteed success. But people want to shortcut it even more. They're like, okay, I want to make money within, sometimes this is very rare, but I might get an email, how do I succeed in 30 days? Or I'm working 2 jobs, I need to make this work right away. No. An advantage, again, that type of thinking, people aren't going to be successful. Instead, the question you want to ask is what's the advantage? How do I best take advantage? How do I best utilize the advantage, particularly by clearing the way of assumptions and of obstacles to using that advantage? And then you'll get there, just like with OMG Live, we got there 6 months earlier than we thought by keeping things open and not just trying to rush through or make things happen faster. Things will happen at literally optimal speed if you remove the vectors against things. You remove the friction, then things will happen at optimal speed. You don't need to push forward even more. So I mentioned the automated business blueprint. Think about as a guy having a bunch of money and you're dating. You can, if you try to press that advantage too much by trying to impress a woman that you're dating with your money overly much, you end up burning out your money and not having money. I've seen this happen plenty. And then the girl who herself believed that it wasn't about the money ends up just coincidentally not wanting to be in a relationship anymore when the money runs out. And I really am not being sarcastic when I say that. They weren't even necessarily a money grubber or anything. It's just all gets screwed up, all right? Because maybe the guy's resentful, and of course this can happen the other way in genders too. Whenever I'm talking about these examples, I'm just trying to teach about the concept. I'm not trying to make a generalization about genders or anything like that. But if you have a guy who has a bunch of money, ends up wanting to press that advantage too much with someone who's dating, he gets resentful. He tries to use it to control her by accident, hardly realizing he's doing it, wants a bunch of stuff in return, and thinks that she now owes him, and then that creates more and more problems, and the advantage turns into a disadvantage, plus the potential advantage goes away, and the money gets spent. And so that's just one of many examples of how you can burn out the situation. You don't need to deficit spend unless you might once in kind of a venture, you might need to kind of kickstart things. It's good to think of a rocket launching into space and getting escape velocity. You might need to invest or at least deficit spend a little bit or invest a bit of money in order to get that escape velocity, such as buying Project X in the first place like you did. Then that's okay. I wouldn't look for that. Spending money, kind of deficit spending like that, it's not my go-to plan. I'm not like, if I have money, it's not like burning a hole in my pocket to spend it. But it's reasonable to take a bit of a risk and to get that kind of launch into escape velocity. But realize there's often a threshold where at some point you're off and running and you no longer need to deficit spend. As a matter of fact, it's counterproductive to do so. And you instead more want to clear the way and steadily let your advantage pick up steam and pick up kind of peripheral things, like it kind of acts like a magnet and gets bigger, like a snowball, right? Let it kind of naturally snowball. You don't really need to like chase after the snowball, trying to pack snow on it, right? Instead, it can just kind of roll downhill and gather momentum as it does, and you just kind of want to watch out for it. Make sure things aren't going to block it. Make sure it's not something that's going to launch it into space or in the wrong direction, or make sure it's not going to crush anybody or anything like that. So this rounds out pretty well what I wanted to cover. Let's see here. I mentioned this. I just want to stress it. Be careful of your goals, and you want to constantly be focused on your goals themselves, not in terms of achieving them, but in terms of adjusting them based on how the conditions on the ground at every moment, essentially. Your brain is never going to want to drop a goal because your brain always wants to achieve the goals that it has, and changing a goal is contrary to just like a car doesn't want to turn, right? Cars want to go in the direction that they're going. That's just physics. Your brain wants to go in the direction it's going, but that's not. That's only because of inertia. It's not because your brain is an oracle and knows something you don't. It does have access to subconscious information that you might not be conscious of. However, don't confuse inertia with some kind of oracle. And if you have a goal to have an advantage, you're going to tend to have, as I mentioned, action bias and just try to project advantages on things that are more like glory hounds. All right. Instead, you want to have a goal to notice and understand advantages. You don't need to totally leap on everything that looks like an advantage. The first thing you could do is try to understand it before and kind of let it naturally prove itself out. Okay, I think I've pretty well covered what I wanted to cover, and I hope this will help you. And you want to take your own time with this probably and look to apply this and integrate it yourself for sure. Okay, thanks, guys.
All right, thank you very much, David. I enjoyed every moment of it. My mind has really been on fire since David released his last video. I've been through all law of implication painstakingly, at least twice with each video, handwritten most of it once, and sometimes taken really careful notes. And boy, I talked to David a lot, and I've gotten my quality of life is extremely, extremely high because of the advice I've gotten from David and working with him. So I'm really glad to bring that advantage to you as well. So I want to thank everybody for coming on this event. We are, by the way, David, more than 10% sold out for OMG Live Nashville, so we will see how this promotion goes. But I really want to thank everybody who's jumped in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch the screen back to my screen here.
And thank you guys. I appreciate the comments and so forth.
Yeah, really wonderful, wonderful comments from so many people. Mike Hayden, thanks so much. Jim, thank you. Lauren, thank you very much. Lauren had a number of great insights aha moments that she really appreciative. Says more people need to listen to David. I agree. Janine, thank you. David Mills, Anthony, Dave Dye, Mary Semmer. Yeah, so many people. The Bebster, Mike Bevington says, thanks, David. Love your stuff. Dwayne Armstrong says, thanks, Epic. Yeah, it really it's pretty profound. I'm really excited for you to have access to this stuff. I got to tell you. wonderful. Lots of posts on Facebook and so on. So I want to thank. I'll just because it's kind of fun for me right now. I want to thank Kurt Angut. Kurt just signed up for OMG Live Nashville, so that's exciting. Kurt, thank you. Brian Planis just signed up. Patrick Momini. So Patrick's going to be there. Ann Crenshaw. Let's see who else we've got here. Paul Donnelly. Alexander Robinson. Hard for me to follow. Nathan Fates. Is that one there? Yep, there's Alexander, Nathan. Brian Hassler. Congratulations, Brian. I know Brian's been having a lot of success recently. Melvin Easton.
I quick little thought here. I was looking at all the orders.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure after all these orders, Mike will. There's a little bit of, we have a benevolent dictatorship, but there's sometimes some civil unrest, within that. But just the thing about pressing and burning out advantages. This year, I just wanted to continue and do the same venue that was so successful as last year, same hotel. Also, I don't want. Mike mentioned fire code. The fire code is actually more like 300 people, but that would be. They euphemistically call it theater style seating, but that just means there's a bunch of little chairs and and there's no way we want to do that. We want to have tables where people can it's called a classroom style seating like we had last year that you see.
Yeah, and of course, and
we're limited to 175.
Yeah, I give David a bit of a.
Of course, I'm kidding too. Yeah,
a bit of a hard time, but yeah, like we could have a theater style seating, but not having these desks and so forth, and having it.
Yeah, I'll let things prove out. If we sell out in a month, and then the year after, we'll certainly look for a larger venue. But just how I tend to do things is we don't need to just take a whole bunch of risks and risk kind of upending everything. It's still it's only our second event. I want to gain a little bit more experience.
Yeah.
And so forth. And I don't think it'll be like horrifically bad with selling out. If it's too bad, then we can always look to do something like have a second event and at some point or whatever. But
yeah, no, and I think it's going to be awesome. And the venue for this event really is just so special. You get refrigerators in your room. You're right. I'm a big believer in having food sorted out. I just went to Vegas a few weeks ago, and I brought a bunch of food with me, and if I hadn't, it really would have been just so much worse. And I managed to get a refrigerator up in my room, but it's really invisible. But you just have to travel so far, and you're really locked into your food options. It's not even so much that they're expensive. The expense really matters, but also it's just not necessarily what you want to eat that's going to give you good energy. With OMG Live, we're right across the street from the Whole Foods. They just opened up a Firehouse Subs right in the parking lot, a Jamba Juice right in the parking lot of the Drury Plaza. There's a diner there. Drury serves breakfast and dinner, which is really great, and so it's really, 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 really nice with that stuff. I think it's going to be awesome. Lots more wonderful. The Oracle of our generation, Jeff. Wow, thanks all. Lots of really, really great comments. Dan's asking, where do you get more information on OMG Live Nashville? You go to omgmachines.com/live.php. That's where you get the full rundown on OMG Live Nashville. And of course, there's a lot of people signing up right now. It doesn't mean that we're going to sell out in a week or anything like that. I mean, I guess we might, but anyways, I'll try to let people know what what the deal is and what's going on. But regardless, we really welcome with open arms everybody who's already signed up. Really excited about doing this again, joining forces once again with Jimmy Kelly, with Russell and Sue, and the other guests, other special guests that will have the event. And it's just going to be exciting. It'll be exciting having the event. It's really exciting for me to share, to have David come live on this Acceleration Webby. If you haven't jumped on Law of Implication yet, it's just absolutely a no-brainer. You have a tremendous taste of Law of Implication inside of your members area, but we'll have to go a little bit. You get to go really just so much deeper with the Law of Implication and all the training, and it's just such a no-brainer. It's real life changer. So, anyways, I want to thank everybody for coming live on this event. I don't know if Russell and Sue, if you guys are still there, or Jimmy Kelly, if you guys are still
we're
there.
all here.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you guys very much, and like I said, we're really ticket sales are brisk with OMG Live Nashville, so you'll have a similar looking crowd of eager-eyed and eager-eared individuals to meet and join forces with you, and to carry to spread the evil that you'll be sharing. The money getting evil. Yeah, the domination. So really want to thank you guys for coming live on this event. David got to put the word out there. Is there anything that Jimmy, Russell, and Sue that y'all want to put out before we close out this event?
Just want to say that we really hope to see everybody there. One person during the chat was talking about where the brewery is. It's not the brewery by the airport. That's tiny. It's the brewery, as Mike said, it's the brewery in Franklin. So that's also on the page as well. That's one thing I just noticed, Mike.
Yeah. It's the brewery in Franklin on McEwen Drive. And to sign up to get your ticket, go to omgmachines.com/live.php. And Sue, thank you so much for coming live today.
Thanks, Mike. It's been wonderful to be here. I can't wait to see everybody live at OMG again this year.
I promised Sue coffee, and I will deliver.
Lots and lots and lots and lots.
I can't be bribed.
We don't sleep. Hope to see you guys in private. We'll stay and answer all your questions and just hang out with all of you. It's always a lot of fun. So thanks, guys. I'll see you there.
Jimmy, you still there?
How's it going, Mike? Yeah, I am.
Hey, man. How was you enjoyed that David Mills stuff? I know you always do.
Oh yeah, it's awesome. He always gets you thinking on stuff. It's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And OMG Live is selling out fast. So this is Jimmy in the back of the room right here, by the way. The shadow, the smudge, the blur. He was his brain was moving at hyperspeed. That's why you can't see him. So it's funny. Even more people when you guys take the stage, we'll ask who made their who bought the ticket, and of course it's fine if you didn't, because we want to see you cross that finish line. So whether you're a beginner or advanced, we want to see you there at OMG Live. But I'm really looking forward to that moment when we'll start the event. I'll give the Lord's Prayer, and then I'll introduce Becker, and then from there. Jimmy will take the stage. He's going to storm the stage and really bring some excitement to the forefront. We're going to have Russell and Sue have their day the second day. It's going to be awesome. And then we're going to have Greg and probably a number of guest speakers on the third day. We'll also have our It's All Connected panel, a follow-up webinar each. So this is going to be really exciting stuff. Look forward to all of you joining us for OMG Live Nashville. And I just want to give David Mills one final special thanks. Just really great having him come live on this event. How many people would like it if we could get David Mills to do a bit of a follow-up? I'm going to give a hashtag follow-up on the Facebook group. If you'd like to see if we can get David to come live and drop even more wisdom, maybe give us a hashtag follow-up or your just your thoughts on what just happened with David. I think that it's I don't know. It's just really exciting having David involved. Ooh, Lauren jumped right on it. I've gotten several messages from Lauren. Lauren's really fired up. I'm fired up about that as well, Lauren. Absolute follow-up. Dave T said, "Wow, it's filling up fast." Ann Crenshaw, I love Dave's work. Ann just got her ticket for OMG Live. Russell, Pat, Vivian, Richard, Dwayne. Dwayne's having more and more success with his business. That's great. Bob, Pat, dropping the knowledge. Yeah, absolutely. David Mills, would you be willing to come live and follow up sometime soon, maybe next week or sometime soon?
I'm thinking of generally over the next coming months coming on one or more times, but presumably even more, and just kind of really helping people get either over the threshold or with making money, or I know a lot of you are making a bunch of money, and just helping you even take it to the next level with a number of things that I want to have kind of exclusive for Project X. So I'll be doing that.
We got an official.
I have some topics lined up.
Yeah, we have an official hashtag follow-up. Heck yeah, from Jay Donaldson. I like that
Excellent.
one. Lots to follow. David Mills is not in the Facebook group, so I have to I have to show this to him.
I'll get myself in there at some point.
One of his strategic things is hanging back from it. Brian Hassler. Brian got his ticket for OMG Live. Congratulations, Brian. Got a hashtag follow-up and a hashtag brilliance.
The good thing about having a reputation for strategy is then when you're lazy, you can just have people think that you're being strategic.
Very good. If you guys could see, kind of over my shoulder, watch how David takes apart just situation after situation. his family situation, his son and wife, they're so happy. It's just unbelievable to see. This is David and Chance. I actually have a number of photographs and videos I've taken. It's really shocking. Just happy family, happy whole situation. Of course, you get to see inside of OMG how happy people are inside of OMG, which is a source of never-ending pride for us. And even video games, I got to tell you, David can really take them down. I mean, it's nuts. He gets in there and reverse engineers them and really makes it special. So, hope you get to come join us for OMG Live Nashville and definitely take advantage of your law of implication. David's going to have even more training for you. We have such a great, so many people fired up about David coming out and teaching us even more. So that's going to be awesome. I want to give Kurt. I don't know, Kurt, if you're still there. We always give the new guy the chance to be the one to end the Webby. So I want to God bless everybody, and we are going to let Kurt hit end the Webby. And I will see you guys at OMG Live Nashville, and we'll see you next week for our Acceleration Webby. God bless everybody. Kurt, you can end it whenever you're ready.
All right.
See you at OMG Live, Kurt.
See you guys there.